Hi, I'm Claire Dalton, and this story, it starts with a party I was never meant to enjoy. Just endure. The invitation came 2 weeks before. A cream-colored envelope, gold lettering, the kind you send out when you're more interested in how it looks on Instagram than whether someone actually wants to be there. Inside, in Vanessa's signature handwriting, 10-year business milestone celebration, cocktail attire, let's sparkle. There was a PS. Please don't wear boots. Be city. No name, no dear Claire, just a PS. I went anyway. Because there's something about siblings, especially sisters, that makes you think, maybe this time won't be like the others. It was. Vanessa greeted me at the top of the stone walkway like she was emceeing her own TED Talk. Glossy lips, hair in soft Hollywood waves, emerald green dress that shimmered like wealth. Then her voice rang out like a cymbal crash in a symphony. Claire made it! Everyone turned. She grinned. And she brought the prairie with her. Laughter rippled, polite, uneasy. The kind people give when they don't know if you're the joke or part of it. I glanced down at myself. Brown boots, yes, clean, white linen dress, handmade, light, unpretentious, hair braided back, minimal makeup, no sparkle, just me. I smiled tightly and stepped forward, holding out the jar in both hands. From the farm. The lavender batch came early this season. She stared like I'd just offered her a pet lizard. Honey, she said flatly. I nodded. Unfiltered, raw. She took it with 2 fingers and handed it off to a passing server like it might stain. The woman next to her leaned in and whispered something. Vanessa laughed. Claire runs this little farm thing outside Eugene. Chickens, carrots, compost piles. Very retro. Then louder. She talks to her bees. That part was true, but not funny. I turned and made my way through the garden. White chairs, gold-trimmed glassware, tables named after virtues, success, ambition, legacy. I found myself seated at gratitude, in the back, next to the speakers. Of course. The catering staff moved like ballet dancers. I wasn't hungry. I excused myself, headed inside the house to find a restroom. That's when I saw it. A letter sticking out from under a sheaf of notes on Vanessa's desk. Her office was pristine, fake fiddle leaf fig, vision board with quotes like dominate, don't compete. But this envelope was real, crisp, unopened. From Wren and Bell LLP Compliance Department, re-audit notification, preliminary irregularities found. I didn't take it, didn't move it. But the header? The name? Burned in. Outside, someone tapped a mic. Music dropped. I stepped back out just as Vanessa launched into her speech. 10 years ago, I had a dream and zero capital. All I had was belief, and a little help from my then-boyfriend, now husband. Thank you, Liam. He smiled politely from the front table, jaw tight. But success is like pruning a rosebush, she continued. You have to cut away what no longer serves you, friends, habits, even family. She looked at me then. She looked at me. I didn't flinch. I reached behind me, plucked the jar of honey from the gift table, and tucked it into my bag. It wasn't about the honey. It was about ownership. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Back at the farm, I watched the sunrise break over the ridge, the light spilling like honey across the damp grass. My boots were back where they belonged, pressed into real soil, not stage-set lawn. The air smelled like clover and work, and I breathed it in like medicine. Vanessa's voice still echoed in my head. All I had was belief, and a little help from my then-boyfriend, now husband. Right, I brewed coffee. Not the curated kind she keeps in gold capsules, but the rich, cheap roast that tastes like early mornings and long days. The email from Wren and Bell replayed in my mind like a slow-building storm on the horizon. Audit. Preliminary irregularities. Something was off. And Vanessa knew it. That speech, the subtle targeting, the power play, it wasn't just vanity. It was cover. People like her don't perform that hard unless they're hiding something deeper than insecurity. By mid-morning, I got a knock on the barn door. It was Maya, a woman from the nearby co-op who'd been helping me coordinate the organic certification paperwork for my crops. She was dressed in denim and worn-out sneakers, her arms full of rolled blueprints and a box of fresh strawberries. Hope I'm not interrupting, she said, stepping in. I gestured toward the workbench. Only thing you're interrupting is my war with a rusted hose nozzle. Have a seat. She dropped the blueprints. So, good news. The grant application went through. You're being fast-tracked for regional innovation funding. I blinked. Wait, seriously? Maya grinned. Claire, this place isn't just a farm anymore. It's a model. People are watching what you're doing. It's fresh, scalable, and it's real. Real. That word. I nodded, swallowing the sharp mix of gratitude and something I hadn't felt in a while. Recognition. She reached into her bag. Oh, and a reporter from Green Current wants to come by this week. Feature on micro-farmers disrupting industrial supply chains. I almost laughed. Not out of disbelief, but from the bitter irony. Vanessa had once told me I'd spend my life talking to dirt. Now dirt was paying off. And hers? Hers might be collapsing beneath her heels. That night I sat at my desk with my old laptop. I'd kept the name Wren & Bell LLP stored in my browser. I looked them up. Boutique audit and compliance firm. High-end. Specializing in internal fraud detection. Definitely not the kind of place you call when it's a typo in payroll. The kind of place you call when you need to protect a company from itself. I checked the address on the scanned envelope I'd memorized. Then I dug a little deeper. A few client names, some headlines. I clicked into one. Tech startup CEO resigns amid misuse of funds allegations. Audit launched by Wren & Bell, 2021. I stared at the screen. Vanessa wasn't facing a slap on the wrist. She was circling something serious. I clicked open my own files. Notes, land leases, grant documents, invoices, cross-referenced, backed up, filed. I kept everything clean. Not because I had to, but because the world doesn't hand you second chances if you're messy and female and rural and plain. I leaned back and let the silence wrap around me. Then I opened my email. 2. Inquiries@wrenandbell.com. Subject, internal concern, former executive associate. Message, I may have information related to your ongoing review of Carrington Development Group. Are you accepting anonymous documentation? I'd prefer to speak off record. I hovered over the send button. Then I clicked. 3 days later, my phone rang. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, a second call came. This time from Liam, Vanessa's husband. I stared at the screen. Let it ring. Then, on impulse, I picked up. Claire? His voice was tight, rushed, like he'd already made 5 calls before this one. Yes? I know this is out of the blue, Listen, has Vanessa said anything to you? About work? I waited. No, I said calmly. Why? A pause. A breath. She's been acting weird. Defensive. Won't let me near her email. And someone from her board called me by mistake asking about a duplicate asset portfolio. I didn't even know what that meant. Claire, what's going on? I stayed silent for a moment, then said, That's something you'll need to ask her. He exhaled hard. She won't talk to me. She hasn't in weeks. Everything's staged. Social media, events, even the house. I thought it was just pressure. Now I'm wondering if it's something else. She's good at the show, I said. Always has been. Liam didn't reply. I almost hung up. But then I said, You should check her print logs. What? The printer in the office. She leaves paper in the tray. Click. He was gone. I didn't hear from him the next day, but I saw the results. By 9:45 a.m., Vanessa's Instagram went dark. By 3 p.m., her company's website homepage was under maintenance. By 7 p.m., I got an email with no subject line. No message, just a single attachment. It was the scan of the same letter I'd seen, but this one had something new. A handwritten note at the bottom. Vanessa, full documentation due by end of week. No further extensions. SB. That night, I sat on my porch and looked out over the stretch of land I'd poured myself into. The rows of lettuce, the bee boxes, the tired oak tree leaning like a reminder of resilience. She was coming undone. And I wasn't doing anything. Not yet. But sometimes silence is louder than revenge. Sometimes stillness is strategy. Ever known someone who built their life like a stage, then forgot where the trapdoor was? The first real sign of fallout didn't come from Vanessa. It came from her mother-in-law. Technically, my mother-in-law too, once removed. I'd almost forgotten that until I saw her name in my inbox. Subject line, Are you free for a call? From Diana Carrington. Time, 2:14 a.m. That alone told me something was unraveling. Diana Carrington didn't call. She summoned, and not at 2 a.m. I called back the next morning before I fed the chickens, mostly because I was curious. Not generous, just curious. She answered on the first ring. Claire. Morning, Diana. Is it true? I paused. Is what true? She exhaled like I'd asked her to say something she didn't want to say. Vanessa, the audit, the financial discrepancies, the private accounts in her maiden name, the silence, all of it. And there it was, unfiltered, collapsing out of a mouth that usually only moved in rehearsed pleasantries. I didn't answer. She continued. Liam hasn't spoken to me. He looks like he's aged 10 years in a week. I came over to drop off soup, and he wouldn't even open the door. And Vanessa? She's hiding, posting like nothing's wrong. But her office is closed. There's a lockout notice on the downtown lease. And the credit card for the family foundation got declined at the grocery store. Liam was humiliated. There was a pause so long I thought she might have hung up. Then, tell me you didn't know. I sat down slowly, the phone warm against my cheek. I didn't say anything because it wasn't my place, I said. Not until it became everyone else's. The silence was thicker this time. Unspoken judgment trying to reorganize itself into something more useful. She's my daughter-in-law, she said eventually. But she's not my daughter. I'm aware. You don't have to gloat. I'm not. You always thought you were better than her. I never said that. You didn't have to. Later that day, Maya stopped by again. She was supposed to just drop off updated grant paperwork. Instead, she found me sitting on the porch, drinking iced tea with a 1,000-yard stare. You good? She asked, half laughing. I just got accused of being right. Dangerous thing to be? She sat down beside me. We didn't talk for a while. Then she said, You know what I've noticed? People don't get mad when you fail. They get mad when you succeed without their help. I didn't say anything. Then she added, And if you succeed instead of them, forget it, that's war. By the time the third email came, this one from a reporter at the Oregonian, I knew it wasn't just gossip anymore. Hi, Claire. I'm working on a piece regarding the recent suspension of Carrington Development Group's leadership. A source mentioned you previously worked in connection with early-stage land deals through your family's property. Would you be open to speaking off record? That was the moment I realized something big had been swept under the rug for a very long time, and the rug had just been yanked back in front of an audience. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up. No warning, no text, no dramatic monologue from the bottom of the driveway. Just her SUV crunching up the gravel and stopping by the front gate like it still belonged to her. She stepped out in heels, paused, realized what she was standing on, and swapped into sneakers she pulled from the back seat. That was new. I watched her approach from the side barn window. She looked like someone trying to play casual but forgetting how people actually walk when they're not performing. She knocked on the side door like she didn't want to draw attention, which was hilarious. We were in the middle of nowhere. I opened it without speaking. She stepped in. It smells like rosemary in here. Because there's rosemary on the stove. You always liked herbs. Very witchy. I turned off the burner. What do you want, Vanessa? She glanced around like the walls might have grown ears. Then she dropped the act. I need somewhere to stay. I stared at her. She wasn't smiling. Not long, she added. Just a week, maybe 2, until the board finalizes the handoff and the dust settles. Why here? She looked away. Because no one would think to look for me here. That much was true. And you didn't want to go to Diana's? I asked. She laughed once, a short, bitter sound. She offered me soup, then sent a lawyer. I folded the towel on the counter. This isn't a hotel. I'm not asking for that. I studied her. Same face, same voice, but something was slipping beneath the surface, the invisible thread she'd always used to hold control. You humiliated me in front of 100 people, I said. You used me as a punchline. Then you pretended I didn't exist. I know. That wasn't 10 years ago. That was last week. I know. I don't owe you anything. I'm not asking you to. Silence. Then she added, I'm asking for a roof, not forgiveness. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe because I wanted to see what she looked like without her armor. Maybe because I'd never seen her live with consequences. Maybe because somewhere inside me, there's still a girl who wants her older sister to stop performing and just be real. I gave her the spare room above the garage. No bathrobe, no slippers, no curated welcome basket, just sheets and a space heater. The next morning, she came down to the kitchen and made eggs. Vanessa, cooking, in my house. That alone could have qualified as breaking news. "You need help with the garden today?" she asked without making eye contact. "Do you even know what a rake looks like?" I Googled it. I laughed. I couldn't help it. We worked for hours. She didn't complain, not once. She sweated through her shirt and didn't reach for a towel. I didn't know what to make of that. Later, we sat on overturned crates and drank lemonade in the shade. She said, "I never hated your life." I didn't reply. She continued, "I hated how much I envied your peace." That night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop again, checked the news. The Carrington name was front and center. Alleged misuse of community investment funds, anonymous whistleblower led to expedited review. My heart skipped once, then steadied. Not because I wanted revenge, because the truth was finally louder than the performance. Ever had someone come back only after the applause stopped? The thing about housing someone who once humiliated you in front of 100 people is silence becomes its own language. Vanessa and I had settled into a rhythm. Not comfortable, never that, but practiced. She didn't ask questions. I didn't offer comfort. She cooked occasionally, washed her own dishes, woke up early, didn't touch my things. But even that kind of truce has a shelf life. It started with a drawer. I'd been organizing the shed behind the barn, the one where I kept all my paperwork, grant applications, and saved records from when I first started the farm. I was digging for a tax form, but what I found was a notebook. Thin, leather-bound, tucked behind a pile of old invoices like something I didn't mean to leave behind. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside were scribbled field diagrams, crop rotations, and something else. Journal entries. Not many. Just 5. Written during the months after Dad died, before the land was in my name, when I was still deciding whether to fight for it or leave it. July 4th. She didn't come to the memorial. Said she had meetings. Said he would have understood. I said nothing. But I remember what he used to say about people who only show up when things are beautiful. I closed the book. I should have thrown it out. Burned it. Buried it under a new row of kale. But instead, I left it on the desk and walked inside. And that's when I noticed the second sign. The mail had been moved. Vanessa never touched my mail. That was the one boundary she didn't cross, until now. On the counter was an opened envelope, one I hadn't seen before. Inside, a folded letter from Wren & Bell LLP. It wasn't addressed to Vanessa, it was addressed to me. Following your inquiry regarding potential misuse of funds related to Carrington Development Group's rural development portfolio, we are formally acknowledging your whistleblower status. Should further documentation become available, you may submit anonymously under case file #2217CD. My chest tightened. That letter wasn't supposed to arrive. Not physically, not here. I heard her footsteps behind me. "You're the whistleblower." She didn't ask. She said it. I turned around. She held the envelope like it burned. I met her eyes. "You went through my mail. I was looking for—" "What?" I don't know. Her voice cracked. She never let it crack. "You told them about the portfolio?" she asked. "You made it public when you lied on the filings." She flinched like I'd hit her. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she whispered. I leaned against the counter, suddenly tired. "Do you?" She stepped forward, her hands trembling now. "This isn't just about me. It's Liam. It's the foundation. It's our name. You think this is justice, but it's not. It's destruction. And you handed them the match." I stared at her. "You handed them the gasoline." She left that night, didn't say goodbye, just packed what little she brought, wrote "thank you" on a yellow sticky note, and taped it to the fridge. A sticky note. I sat in the dark for a long time after she drove off. Then I went back to the shed, opened the notebook again. This time, I kept reading. September 8th. The bank called. Her name was still on the property file. I asked her to sign it over. She said she'd get around to it. She didn't. I paid the taxes anyway. October 1st, the chickens got sick. I cried in the barn and no one knew. November 23rd. She posted a photo from Bali. The caption said, "Chasing peace." I closed the book, and I finally let myself admit something. I hadn't just let her stay here for closure. I'd done it because part of me still wanted her to see me. Not the farmer, not the failure, not the girl in boots and linen dresses, the woman who built something real from the wreckage she left behind. The next morning, I drove to town, stopped at the old storage unit on 5th, and unlocked a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside, a folder labeled Legal Transfer Dalton Farm 2012, a sealed envelope with Vanessa's signature still fresh on the front, a copy of the check I wrote to buy her out. She never even cashed it. Just handed it back and said, "Call it a family favor," then mocked me for retiring at 20-something to play with goats. I stood there with the envelope in my hands, wondering how long I'd let her own parts of my story she never even remembered. That night, I got a text. From Liam. "She's staying at a hotel in Bend. Asked me not to tell you, but I think you deserve to know. She's talking about running. Somewhere with no press, no trail." I stared at the message, then typed, "Let her. But tell her one thing. Tell her I still have the notebook." The email hit at 6:13 a.m. "Claire, I know we agreed on off-record, but I need to be transparent. Your connection to the Carrington file has been confirmed by a secondary source. The article will run next week either way. We'd prefer to include your voice. Otherwise, the story speaks without you. Avery Steele, senior reporter, The Oregonian." I sat on the edge of the porch, coffee in hand, still barefoot. The sky was gray, not dramatic thunderclouds, just that heavy, blank kind of gray that looks like it might cry but doesn't. I read the email 3 times. They knew. Not just guessed. Confirmed. Which meant Vanessa would know too, if she didn't already. I opened the attachment. It was the article draft. Headline bold and centered. "Whistle in the Wind. Inside the Fall of Carrington Development," by Avery Steele. The opening paragraph didn't name me, but the 5th one did. Sources close to the whistleblower, identified as Claire Dalton, a former partial landholder in early Carrington expansion, confirmed that internal documents and evidence were turned over in spring, leading to the current federal inquiry. My stomach didn't drop. It just locked. Like something inside me braced for impact before my brain had time to process what hit. By noon, my phone had buzzed 17 times. All unknown numbers. I didn't answer any of them. But the 18th call came with a name. Liam Carrington. I let it ring. Then I picked up. "She knows," he said without hello. "Someone sent her the article draft." Of course they did. "Where is she?" I asked. "She came home. She's not saying much, but Claire, she's unraveling." I exhaled. "That's not new." "No," he said, "but this time she's dangerous." "What does that mean?" "She's not fighting. She's planning." At 5:47 p.m., I heard tires on gravel again. I knew the sound now. I didn't get up, just stood at the sink, drying my hands as the knock came. 1 knock, 2 beats of silence, then another knock, lighter this time, like hesitation. I opened the door. She looked different, not disheveled, not angry, just still. "I'm not here to yell," she said. "Good," I replied, "because I'm not here to listen." She stepped forward, uninvited. "I read it," she said. "Every word." I crossed my arms. "Then you know it's not just about you." She laughed, not the cruel performative kind, the tired kind, when someone runs out of shields. "It's always been about me," she said, "even when it wasn't." She reached into her bag, pulled out something wrapped in a silk scarf. I knew the scarf. Mom's. Vanessa had taken it years ago after the funeral. Inside was my notebook. "I didn't throw it out," she said. "I couldn't. I didn't reach for it. I came to ask one thing," she said. "Not to fix this, not to erase it." I waited. She met my eyes. "Will you read from it? To me?" My chest tightened. "No," I said. She blinked. "I'll read it at the hearing." Vanessa went still, then nodded. Not because she agreed, but because she finally understood. That night, I sat at the desk by the window, journal open, fingers tracing old ink. The truth was in there, written by a version of me no one applauded, no one quoted, no one liked at parties. But she told the truth anyway. And now the world would hear it, not through revenge, not through drama, but through a story that could finally speak without apology. Have you ever saved something? Not to keep, but to finally let it speak when the moment was right? They didn't call it a hearing. They called it an internal review with key parties present. The phrasing was so carefully sterilized I could practically hear the lawyers behind it. No press, no cameras, just a large conference room with too many water bottles and not enough windows. I sat across from Vanessa at a long walnut table polished to a mirror shine. Her posture was perfect, of course. Back straight, legs crossed, wearing navy, the color of I'm responsible but not cold. She looked like someone who had practiced contrition without ever learning how to mean it. Liam sat beside her, silent. Across the table were 3 men in blazers who hadn't taken off their coats in 2 hours. One of them was from Wren and Bell, another from the board. The third looked like he'd been pulled from a hedge fund meeting and hadn't stopped thinking about his lunch. And then there was me. No title, no legal team. Just me in black slacks and a cotton blouse that still smelled like lemon balm. No makeup, no apology. "Miss Dalton," the man from the board began, "thank you for your cooperation. We've reviewed the documentation and appreciate your coming forward. For the record, are you comfortable sharing, in your own words, what motivated your action?" I could have answered 100 different ways, but I said this. I did it because I was taught that silence, when you know something's wrong, becomes complicity. A pause. Pens scribbled. Liam glanced sideways at Vanessa. She said nothing. "Were you aware," the Wren and Bell representative asked, "that your identity would eventually be known to the subject of the investigation?" "Yes." "And were you aware of the potential fallout, personally, socially, financially?" I looked across the table at my sister. "More than you know." They gave Vanessa a chance to respond. She stood, took a breath, the same way she used to before giving a speech at fundraising galas. She knew how to perform sincerity like it was choreography. "I won't deny the mistakes," she said, voice steady. "I let ambition blur the boundaries of what was ethically sound. I overreached. I justified things that were never mine to justify. Not I lied, not I defrauded, just overreached. I believe in redemption," she continued, "and I believe my track record speaks to my passion, even if the path wasn't always clean." She paused. Then, "I also believe my sister has a complicated history with me, and that her decision to come forward wasn't just about justice." There it was. The twist, the implication, subtle, polished, poisoned. The board leaned in, just slightly. One of the men actually nodded. I sat still, then reached into my bag and pulled out the notebook. "I didn't come to relitigate family trauma," I said, "but since my integrity was put on trial, without a judge, I'd like to read 1 page." The room quieted. Even Vanessa's mouth parted slightly. She hadn't expected me to bring it. I opened to the entry dated October 19th. She asked me to sign over the property. Said she didn't need it, that it was just dirt. I didn't argue. I handed her the pen, but she never came back to visit. Not once. I buried Dad that year. Alone. She sent flowers. The card was blank. I looked up. I didn't speak then. I am now. The man from Wren and Bell broke the silence. "That's sufficient, Miss Dalton. Thank you." Afterward, I stepped outside. The wind was sharp, colder than I'd expected. I wrapped my jacket tighter, but it didn't help. Liam followed a few minutes later. "She won't recover from this," he said. "She already has," I replied. "She just won't admit the version she's rebuilding isn't real." He nodded slowly. "Do you want her to apologize?" "No." "Then what?" I looked out over the parking lot, lined with Teslas and black SUVs, all symbols, no substance. "I just want her to stop editing the story." That night, back at the farm, I found a package on my porch. No return address, no note. Inside was the silk scarf, the same one Vanessa used to carry like a badge of inheritance. Wrapped in it was a photo, us as kids. I was maybe 7. She was 9. We were sitting on the porch steps, both eating watermelon. I had dirt on my cheeks. She had a scraped knee. We looked real. I turned the photo over. She wrote one thing. I remember. 3 weeks passed. The article ran. Quietly at first, then louder. Vanessa's board voted to dissolve her position. The Community Foundation suspended all programs tied to her name, and the press, after feasting, moved on. But silence stayed. People messaged me. Strangers. Women. One said, "I didn't know you could walk away without screaming. Thank you for proving that's allowed." Another wrote, "My sister gaslit me for 20 years. You didn't say revenge. You said enough. That's more powerful." I didn't reply to most, but I read every word. Because sometimes validation doesn't come from those who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from the ones who recognize the bruise without needing to press on it. Then came the envelope. No return address again, just initials on the seal. VK inside. A single sheet, typed, crisp, short. "Claire, I won't ask for forgiveness." But I see now that silence wasn't absence, it was weight. And I left you holding all of it. You don't owe me anything, but I owe you the truth. I'm stepping down from everything, officially, permanently. For the first time, the consequences are mine alone. I hope someday you'll remember me before I was cruel. V. I folded the letter in half and didn't cry. Because closure doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it's just knowing the door you once begged to open now closes without bitterness. The farm kept growing. Spring came early that year. The bees were thriving. The soil turned easily beneath my boots. One morning, a reporter called. Wanted me to speak on a panel for women in ethics. I said no. She asked why. I said, because I've already said what I needed to, and it wasn't for a microphone. Before dinner that night, I slipped the old notebook into the wood stove, watched it catch fire. No anger, no regret, just warmth. I didn't need the words anymore. I had lived them. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is walk away without slamming the door. That's what I learned. Not every truth needs an audience, but every silence has a weight. And if you don't choose what to carry, someone else will choose it for you. I didn't fight to be right. I fought to be free. Maybe you've been there too, holding back what should have been said years ago, or watching someone rewrite your story while the world cheers. So tell me, have you ever let go of someone, not out of anger, but out of peace? If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you of your own path, leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, or what part of this hit home. And if it didn't speak to you, I still want to know why. Let's talk about it. If this story found its way to your heart, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Your voice matters here. Let's keep growing, together.